But now the business has outgrown the scope of the leader. The leader that used to push and drive the success has now become the bottleneck for success. It's time for that leader to start building systems and teams so that the business has the capacity to grow, right? Hi, welcome. This is John Baker and Rebecca Eyre from Influence on Purpose. You know, the topic today is one that comes up a lot. As leadership coaches and working in the area of leadership development, we often come across people that say, well, this is my style of leadership. We'll hear things like, you know what? I like to get down into the weeds with my folks. I never ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do. Or we'll hear them say, I like to delegate and give people space, and I let them build on their own strengths. Both of those sound pretty good, and both of them can be pretty good, but often they're just not. And it's not because that's a bad style of leadership. It's just a misdiagnosis of the need and a misapplication of your style. So when we work with leaders, we don't work at helping them find or develop their style of leadership. We work with folks to help them understand what are the needs of your organization and the needs of the people or person you're leading, and what's required of you to help them be successful in accomplishing your shared mission. So it turns out that adaptability is key. Just like in business, if you have a hard and fast business strategy that you never vary from, your odds of success are very low, almost none. What you find is for your strategy to be acceptable and successful, you need to be able to adapt over time with changing circumstances, changing markets, changing business. So leadership works like that, and they happen to go hand in hand. That the ability to adapt is required of us if we're going to lead effectively over time.
The Marine Corps, we'd always hear adapt and overcome, usually when you were told to do something really hard. And my sister, she's a therapist, she's found her clients quoting back to her, grow or die, so, which is a bit more stark, but that idea that there's no one way that's going to fit everything.
Yeah.
Example, what the objective is.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you know what the objective is, you find a new way.
Yes. And as you know, if you know what the objective is and you start to learn the environment you're working in, and you start to learn the people you're working with.
So we all do know that there are different leadership styles. So could you give us a breakdown of what those are before we get into the win?
Yeah, the common leadership styles that you'll hear about are, one is transactional leadership. And that's a very conservative or traditional style of leadership, kind of like the carrot and the stick, right? Mm-hmm. If you do this well, this will be your reward. If you don't do this well, this will be your consequence. Now, those can be done well or they can be done poorly. For instance, if we use rewards and consequences from a very authoritative and high control, then you're just not leading well. But there are possibilities of using both the consequences and the rewards well, right? So consequences can be very natural. If we do this, we're going to make the customer happy and we're going to have better business. If we do this, we're going to let people down and we're going to have to recover from that. It's going to hurt us, right? So the next one would be servant leadership. That became very popular in my younger leadership years. There was a number of really good books about servant leadership. I work with people today who are excellent leaders, and they talk a lot about servant leadership. This puts the follower's needs before the needs of the leader. Servant leaders are highly emotionally intelligent. The followers feel understood, and there's a mindfulness of who your stakeholders are, who has a stake in this business, and how do we serve them. There's a laissez-faire type of leadership, very hands-off. Now, these people will say, I never micromanage. I trust my people and I let them do their jobs well. That they have well-established protocols and working systems that kind of can be on autopilot. There's a lot of trust and independence. And also, there's a mindfulness of all stakeholders. And then finally, there's the charismatic leader. That's a leader who's eloquent. Their speeches are inspiring. They're good cheerleaders. There's a lot of focus, however, on themselves. Their magnetism, their energy can push or drive others to move forward. It can become very political. It can also create a halo effect because the leader is so wonderful and awesome and influential. People just want to follow that leader. Did you, even in the Marine Corps, did you see different styles of leader, or did they all pretty much do the Marine Corps leadership style?
No, it was very different. You have very young people usually. I mean, I remember I got out at 26, and I remember thinking my leaders were old. In retrospect, they were probably in their 40s at the latest, right? You have 18-year-olds going. And so at the beginning, there is a very carrot and stick method. It's very transactional, especially boot camp. But once you got out, people were a bit more free to be individuals. Some of the best leaders I knew were probably
Laissez-faire?
or even servant leadership. One of the best leaders I had was it's funny because he was a very gruff. He wasn't what you would think of as soft or touchy-feely or emotionally, but he really was very emotionally intelligent. He was very supportive. He was very aware of the needs of who he was serving. So even in the Marine Corps, where it's a very command and control structure, and that doesn't change, but the leadership style could still change to fit the situation and the people.
I think there's a good point you made there too, that it's easy for us when we look at those styles to think of them in kind of almost as caricatures of a leader, right? So a servant leader is going to be soft and therapeutic, and yet you can have a very no-nonsense, gruff person who says, man, I'm here to serve you and help you succeed.
It was a principle with him.
Yeah.
It was his job.
Very good. There was an example we had that I with one company, just a favorite, I shouldn't say favorite, like saying I have a favorite child, right? But a client that I thoroughly enjoy working with and have a long-term working relationship with. I was talking with the CEO, and we were talking about two leaders that couldn't look more different on the outside. One was very, very transactional, great manager, had been around a long time, highly intelligent, very knowledgeable, and he managed his people with a very clear idea of what it meant to him to be a leader, and he would give them good answers and good guidance and make sure they didn't fail. Very dedicated to the company and to the success of his department and his stewardships. Another was pretty much hands-off. He was one of his sayings was fail forward, right? Experiment, try things. You're going to learn from it. It's going to be okay, right? And very much kind of certainly some servant leadership there, but I would say maybe a more laissez-faire style, if nothing else. And what was interesting is when they both struggled as leaders, it was for the exact same reason. It was because they led with their style, they didn't really diagnose the needs of the individual at that time and what they needed. It was, this is my style. I'm hands off. I trust people. This is my style. I'm there for people. I get down into the weeds with them. So that's probably the biggest point here is it's just not about your style at all. Right? That's where people can really get stuck.
So we've talked a little bit in this conversation and quite a bit in other videos about how your leadership style really should change to fit the needs of who you're leading, right? Individual people are going to need different things, but it also should change to fit the needs of your organization at the time. So even in the Marine Corps, it's a very command and control structure, but leading in the field or in combat or in country is very, very different than leading in a barracks where everyone's pretty much safe, right? So in a business environment, what situations would require a certain kind of leadership style beyond the needs of the individual, but seeing the needs of the business?
So your business environment can be, you could be in a startup business. That's going to take, I'll go back and we'll talk about the specifics of each one. But you may be in a startup. You may be in a turnaround situation where you're trying to turn a business around. We'll talk about an experience I had with that, with a turnaround consultant who wanted leadership coaching. Or you could be in a realignment. Maybe the market has shifted. The customers are wanting something new, or for some reason you need to realign your business and adapt your vision and your mission. Or you may be in sustaining success. There's a very specific style of leadership. If you feel like we're doing great, well, it's really easy to become complacent. And that's going to be the beginning of a downward trend if you let that happen. So those are some of the business environments that people find themselves working in.
Okay, I can see that, because I could see in a startup, you don't really want a laissez-faire. I think I didn't have a degree in linguistics. You don't really want a laissez-faire leader, right? Or a laissez-faire leader in a turnaround, right? When your company's been struggling. Or if you're doing really great, you don't want someone who's going to come in and make huge changes.
Yeah.
We're doing all right now. We're trying to sustain and maybe grow, not turn everything around.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So let's say you're in a startup situation. It's interesting because I've had people that say, man, we've been at this for years and I feel like we're still in startup, which can happen, right? So startup doesn't mean the first 6 months or year of your business. It certainly can
Flexible.
and often is, but it could be, you could be at it for a while and still be in that kind of startup mode. So if you're in a startup, you're assembling capabilities and resources, and you're trying to get the business off the ground. Some of the challenges to that are going to be building structure and systems without a clear framework or boundaries. Another challenge is going to be building cohesive, high-performing teams. You don't have the team in place yet. Even if you get really high-performing individuals if you recruit well into your startup, getting those people to be a team is a whole nother skill set as a leader. And then you're usually doing it with limited resources. If you had a startup, you're probably shoestringing it a little bit as well. The opportunities are this idea of a fresh start, right? There's no mistakes. You don't have bad habits to overcome. You're not trying to overcome a stuck culture. Usually people can be very energized by possibilities, right? You're making the dream happen when you're in a startup. And then you don't have the pre-existing rigidity of people's thinking. So when we think about all of these, there's kind of the offense and the doing, offense or defense and doing or learning. In a startup, it's going to be more offense than defense, and there's going to be more doing than learning. Now, certainly it's not one or the other. Obviously, if you're in a startup situation, you're learning every day. But you can't just sit around and contemplate, what have I learned today? You've got to be making things happen. And the learning is going to come from those experiences.
So then for the leadership style that would best fit that situation, always remembering you're taking the needs of individuals into account as well. But so would you say more charismatic, more motivating, more?
I don't know. It's not necessarily... It's not that any one of those leadership styles fit, because there's going to be kind of subcultures or sub-themes within. So with that, the leadership style is going to be, again, the more offense, kind of moving things forward, and the more doing. Now, you can do that, if you think about it, you can do that now certainly laissez-faire wouldn't fit.
Probably not.
Right? Charismatic might, but I would be careful with that, because you need people to be stepping up and making things happen. So if you're more charismatic, you might be, I heard the term once, a shade tree leader. And that is that leader who kind of soaks up all the light, gets all the credit. They become far too political. And so the people underneath just end up waiting to follow your lead rather than taking initiative. So certainly servant leadership might be one that works well. But even traditional leadership wouldn't be ruled out.
I could see that would be very motivating for the payoff. This is
Yeah.
probably people who they know this is a gamble, right? In the mission, I would imagine.
Exactly. I've been part of some startups as a leader and as part of the leadership team of startups. And one of the things that made that a good fit for me was I have kind of a high risk reward mindset, right? I'm willing to take certain risks because I understand that these rewards are possible. I've also seen that fail, and that's just part of the deal, right? Is that's the nature of risk. Other people are very low risk, but they're okay with that kind of that steady reward that fits them better. It fits their life better. So, yeah.
So even in business situations, it isn't a one perfect.
No. Yeah. So that's the thing too. I'm so glad you asked that, because it might be, well, which of these leadership styles fits this business environment? And there is no one-to-one correlation there. So it's kind of like we'll go through the rest of these styles here in a minute, but just to kind of set the stage, it's kind of like you've got this toolbox and you're the mechanic, right? Or you've got your medical bag and you're the doctor. You have to do the diagnosis and then pick the mix of tools that you have available to you that meet the needs, right? So that's where experience and really coaching comes in. Having those conversations with your coach or your mentor. The point for you, though, is take the time to think about those things so that you're not practicing malpractice, right? You're not applying the wrong solution in the situation.
What's another business environment that we could?
The next one that we brought up was turnaround. So turnaround is taking a business or unit back to success, getting it out of trouble, getting it back on track. Now, the challenges here are re-energizing a demoralized team or stakeholders. You've got people that have started to experience failure. That hurts, right? And so managing time pressure, you have to be quick and decisive. Your work has to have impact. You need to have wins. You need to have measurable wins in this situation, and go deep enough with reductions and hard personnel choices that in terms of, because what you're thinking, what you need to understand here is if you're in a turnaround, your business, I love the statement, every business is perfectly designed to get exactly what it's getting. So if you are doing a turnaround, you're redesigning the business for different outcomes than what you've got now, right? So you're going to be making some really tough choices. People are going to need to make changes, or you're going to need to change people. The opportunities are everyone recognizes that the change is necessary. If you're doing a turnaround, you've got to be good at making a business case for the changes, because the changes are going to be hard. So you have to be very clear. The business case looks like this. This is where we are right now, and this trajectory is one of failure. This is what we need to create to be successful in the future, and that's going to take some tough changes. People have to know that. If you go in there and start saying, oh, this is no sweat, we can do this, you're going to create expectation violations.
Yeah.
And that can become very demoralizing for people.
And I think there's a key to the word phrase expectation violations. Violation, it has the same root as the word violence, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a bigger deal than I think people realize. If they don't know what's happening and they have a certain expectation based on your words or your actions or your silence, and then that's violated, it is really hard. It is, you said, demoralizing. It's almost heartbreaking. So in those situations, it is so much better to just be clear up front.
Yeah.
And people know what to expect.
So everybody knows there's huge opportunity here, right? And you want to see people that want to be a part of that. Affected stakeholders and constituencies have a tendency to offer support. So the people who are in it with you are going to support you because they need you to win. They need you to turn this around. And kind of this goes back to the challenge is another opportunity is a little success does go a long way. You can really, what you're doing is you're creating success and building on success. There's an important mind shift, almost I guess you could literally call it a paradigm shift. You've got a business that's been focusing on failure, and it's with little successes, it's easy to overlook them and say, yeah, but we're still struggling here. And yeah, but that doesn't fix everything. So you need to be able to lead in a way that says, this is a success, and then here's how we're going to use this to build to the next success, so you start getting a mindset and a paradigm of success as opposed to a paradigm of failure. In the turnaround, you're going to be defense over offense, right? So you're actually creating a defense against the failures that have gone before. And this is also more doing than learning. This is a high action requirement. So you have to have action and impact and to be moving the ball up the field.
Okay. What's a third environment?
The third one's realignment. Now this one's a little different. This is where you're revitalizing or re-energizing a business unit.
So how is this different than a turnaround?
Isn't that interesting? So you're not necessarily working from failure. Oftentimes it's more forward-looking, and that will come up, where in a turnaround, you start out with looking at what you've got and say, this is a failure, right? And so that's where the demoralization. Revitalizing we might just be in a slump,
okay,
right? So I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. We're going to talk about sustaining success. And we talked earlier about the danger there is complacency. So maybe you had a very successful business and you've become complacent, and now you have to revitalize it.
Okay.
If you have a successful business and you become complacent and you fail to revitalize, you're going to get into failure, and then you're going to need to do a turnaround. So a lot of this has a lot to do with that. We talked earlier about adaptability and timing. So with a realignment, we're revitalizing, re-energizing. The challenges here are you're dealing with cultural norms that no longer support success. So we're into our cultural we're in our groove. But that groove is no longer supporting success. Like we mentioned earlier, maybe the market has changed. Maybe the expectations are different. Maybe technology has made it a different world for us to live and work in. You have to convince that change is necessary. This is harder, right? One of the strengths of the turnaround was people know change is necessary. In this case, you have to say, oh, no, you might have a lot of people say, oh, we're fine. Leave well enough alone. Don't mess with, don't mess with us. And you have to restructure and refocus. And man, that's work. Right. The opportunities are that the organization has specific pockets of strength that you can build on. You haven't gone into failure mode yet. So there are people that are good at their jobs who know what they're doing that you can, or your systems are still sound, right, and may just need some tweaking. And people want to continue to be successful and be part of something successful, right? So in this case, you have people that have experienced success and help them understand to continue to be successful. Here's some changes we'll need to make, right? I've experienced that with leaders who have been successful in building their business, but haven't made the transition. What that can really look like is somebody who's maybe a charismatic leader and they've built a business. They've gone through startup and they've just done a great job. But now the business has outgrown the scope of the leader. The leader that used to push and drive the success has now become the bottleneck for success. It's time for that leader to start building systems and teams so that the business has the capacity to grow, right? So that can be one of those challenges or opportunities. This is going to be a lot of offense over defense, right? So we're not defending against a failure or defending against, you need to be on offense here, looking forward and moving the ball forward. And in this case, learning over doing. So if you can think about what that might look like, learning over doing in a realignment situation. This is one where people are going to have to look and learn that there really is an opportunity that they might not have seen otherwise.
So there's less urgency.
Yes.
Than you would see in a turnaround. You're doing a lot of doing because you don't have a steady income stream yet. You don't have the safety of the systems and the past success. But in that was a startup, right? And then it's because you are fighting failure. Yeah. And it could end very soon and you could lose all that you've built. And this one, you haven't lost anything yet. So it is time for reflecting and doing these important but not urgent things before they become urgent.
Exactly. And the next one is kind of even more so of the realignment. It's that there's no real sense of urgency, right? So when we start talking about sustaining success, preserving success and taking it to the next level, right? It's what's next, right? Rather than I had a mentor when I was young in the business, especially in this business of leadership development and coaching, who said you have to put a thorn in your laurels, right? So
sounds comfortable.
Yeah. So if you don't know it, there's a saying called you can't rest on your laurels, right? So the laurels are the trophies, the prizes that you get for success, right? And a lot of people will say, well, they want to rest on their laurels. I'm successful. I'm good with that. And his saying was put a thorn in your laurels. So if you try to rest on them, they're going to poke you and make you and move you to action. So the challenges with this is avoiding decisions that derail success. Right? Make sure you're not violating a principle, a value, or a part of your mission so that you actually end up derailing the success that you have. Man, this can be tough if you're new and you're trying to lead to what's next because now you're in the shadow of a leader who's been very successful and has created the good experiences that people have had. So you might be in the shadow of a leader that's revered by the teams. And it's what does it mean to take things to the next level? That's one of the other challenges is what you have to have a very strong vision for what's next and understand. Remember the saying, every organization is perfectly designed to get exactly what it's getting. How do we design our organization to move to that next level of success? So this can be really tough. The opportunity, you've already got a strong team in place. You've got people who are successful at their jobs already. And people are motivated to succeed because they're part of a successful company and it feels good, right? So building on that. So your foundations for success are already in place. So here you have to have a clear vision. Adapting to leadership to the needs of the team and the individual is probably the thing that I think applies to everything we've talked about.
Yeah.
So
I think adaptation is key. So we talked about how no leadership style fits every person. There is no one leadership style that fits every situation. There are some that are better than others, but it's that toolkit you talked about. There is, unfortunately, there's no easy cheat sheet for, we're a turnaround, we need a charismatic leader. We're in success, we need... But there isn't. There just isn't. That's why leadership is hard. It's because you have to continuously study and grow and change and backtrack and check yourself and ask others, what do you need from me? How am I doing? What do we need as a company, as a team? So if you were looking for the quick cheat sheet, sorry, we cheated you, I guess.
The thing that doesn't ever change are your core values, your vision. It's interesting. I was working with a company and we talked about your vision really doesn't change. It does adapt though. Mm-hmm. I was working with a company that was past their startup phase and just realizing it and working on kind of putting structure in place, but really building on, they were very successful in building on that success. So interestingly, if you read our book, Influence on Purpose, 5 Principles for Leaders to Build Regenerative Cultures, we talk a lot about the principles of success, the core values of your company, the vision of your company, and the mission of your company. And then we kind of go on from there to plans and practices. And we use the analogy and the visual of a tree, and the trunk of the tree represents the vision. And interestingly, this worked out really well because your vision does grow like ring to ring to ring, like the trunk of a tree. So it doesn't stay at your tree, your business, your tree doesn't stay a sapling. It grows stronger and stronger over time because your vision expands. It doesn't necessarily change in a way of like, I wanted to be this and now I wanted to be that. It's as you succeed, more opportunities come to mind. And knowing that, especially if you're looking at that sustaining success, understanding it from the term of expanding your vision and then understanding that your mission is going to be bigger and stronger as well. We did a video a while back on management versus leadership, and we very quickly identified that as a bit of a misnomer. It's management and leadership. And if you do both well, they work together well. That's going to apply here. So I'll just be very brief on that part of it. Management is that ability to really manage those details and know your systems are in place and help onboard people. Leadership is what starts to happen when you've managed well or you've got very capable people coming on board, where you can kind of step back and lead them rather than always be checking and making assignments and doing follow-up, which is a lot of management, is making clear assignments and having a good follow-up strategy. So understanding how management and leadership work together is a good idea and needed here. The other thing then is, I just mentioned our book, Influence on Purpose, 5 Principles for Leaders to Develop Regenerative Cultures, and we'll make sure we have a link for that as well. And the whole book will help you with this concept of leading well and being adaptable. The last chapter, chapter 8, is one where we have a tool that you can use to assess your stewardship as a leader and identify what is needed from you as a leader for the individuals in this circumstance at this time. So we have some tools that really help with that, but I think the main point we wanted to make here was that ability to, one, don't be trapped into thinking that you have a leadership style that will fix all your problems and that everyone will be able to rely on. You don't. Even if your leadership style is wonderful, you'll be wrong 70% of the time because it doesn't fit all circumstances or all individuals. And then the other is making sure you use that. I love the understanding of what it means to be a steward as a leader. A steward is someone who understands that he or she doesn't own the resources, even the human resources that they have responsibility for, that they are there to help those systems and those people all work together to accomplish the mission of the company that everyone signed up for. So I think those are some of the things I want to make sure we understand well.
All right. If you have any questions, please share them in the comments or contact us through our website. I'll make sure there's a link for that too. Thanks for joining us.